Good morning, and thanks for clicking on the video. Maybe you can tell that there's a new sound in the aviary. But before I reveal the new species, I'm just stalling a little bit, so anybody who wants to try to guess or reason out what they must be, you'll have an opportunity to do that. In this video, I will just show you what they've been doing since they came, tell you a little bit about what I know about the species, why they're hard to find, what I expect to be the challenges, what I don't know will be what I don't know about them, just everything I can think of that might be interesting. So if you're curious, stay tuned. Still not sure? Well, here's your next clue. This poor little miserable bird just got out of the crate, shipping container, I should say. Of course, it's an African species of least concern. It's found in Western and Central Africa. It's one of 3 closely related species. Maybe this will help. That's the female that you see on the right. And you already know that they spend most of their time on the ground. And some of you guys will know for sure and have already guessed, in fact. And some you may not even have heard of this species, but these are black-faced quailfinch. And I'll put the Latin name up there, and I won't try and pronounce it because I'll sound like an idiot. They literally have just been released into this smallish flight. And you're going to notice they are pretty beat up, and that's for a very special reason. One of the characteristics of this species is that they tend to freeze, just like a quail, when they're concerned or startled or worried, and then they explode straight up. And then they sort of plop down out of the air, kind of like a baby bird does. They're not strong flyers. And where they land is where they land. So you can imagine that the process of getting here from Europe was hard on them, and I plan on making that up to them for the rest of their lives. So they're in this smallish flight. So while they're in quarantine, and I've made a whole video about the purpose of quarantine and how it's good for the import birds as well as the birds you're going to be moving them in with, mostly I just leave them alone and I watch. And I'm doing a number of different things, which I'll just kind of reiterate. One is I'm checking for food preferences to see how flexible they are in how they take their food. This species principally eats off the ground, foraging, but will they go a short height above the ground to eat out of a bowl or not? What kind of bowl do they prefer or not? So you'll see some of the foods are actually on the grass, some are in different kinds of trays and bowls and of various sorts. So I want to make sure that they're getting food and they're getting water. The kind of food that I'm investigating include, you can see cucumber, half-ripe millet. I have a native grass seed mix from southwestern U.S., which has some of the species that are common with the sort of dry environment where they naturally live, would have lived if they were wild-caught species. I have orchard grass and canary grass and fonio grasses. I have my regular seed mix, which are a lot of small millets plus some grass seeds and tonic seeds mixed in. I have millet spray. They have egg food and sprouted seeds available to them, and they have little teeny tiny mealworms, and then mineral grit. And I think that's it. So they just have access to a lot of different things that they can investigate, and I'm just paying attention to anything that I need to know. And I'm looking obviously to see if when they are off guard, do they look okay when they're resting? Are they puffed up? Are they looking lethargic? Are their eyes bright? All of that, watching their poop. And I'm watching the dynamics between the birds. So there are 8 birds total, all the same species. So that's what they're doing during the first few weeks that they have moved in. And that's what I'm doing, watching. So here's a good example of something that, I would pay attention to, because I'm hoping that these guys can all share space in the aviary, including when they're in breeding condition. And so watch this dynamic coming up. There's a female. She's eating millet off of the leftmost piece. You can barely see her at the moment. Who is about to be named Angry Bird. And you're going to see that she does not like anyone. Or so I thought. And I don't know why, but you'll see I slowed the video here. You're going to see that she goes after another one of the birds right there, spooks them. See how she's tracking them up in the air. Now they're afraid to land anywhere, which is sort of their MO anyway. If they can't land on the ground, they don't want to land on a perch, but they can. They just don't want to. So she's Angry Bird. We'll come back to her later on once they move into the aviary. So one of the things I have to try to figure out is why. Is she guarding food or water? Are they working out a hierarchy or a pecking order? Is she defending a partner? What's going on? And that can be pretty stressful for the birds, and especially, again, the way that she's going to spook them. You know, they go flying straight up and bash their heads into the top of the aviary or the wire. You know, or it could just be stressful being chased. So anyway, my point being that, you know, quarantine is not just to prevent infectious diseases being spread to your existing population. It also gives me a chance to get to know the birds and to see what I'm going to have to do to try to manage the population so everybody can thrive. And right off the bat, everything about them is absolutely magical. I am so thrilled to have a chance to work with them, and I am mindful of what I'm seeing here in this dynamic. So let's fast forward a few weeks, and here they are in the aviary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You may be able to guess who Angry is. So my first impression is that they're pretty chill birds. They are curious, they're friendly, they're pretty confident. Within the first day, they've investigated pretty much the entire floor of the aviary. They interact really nicely with the other birds. In fact, you can see behaviorally why the greenback twin spots are considered to be closely related to the quail finches, more so than they are to any of the other twin spot species. A lot of behaviors that are very similar. And so the transition has been really easy. But there is one thing that is a problem that I'm trying to figure out. And it's related to this natural behavior they have. So here is a female that's frozen. So that's their first inclination. So if I walk into the aviary, for example, the first thing they do is freeze. They hunker down wherever they are, go dead still, and they'll just be there for like a long time. Like they can just chill there for a long time. But if that doesn't make them feel safe, their next inclination is to do the explosion. So let me show you what that sounds like and the effect it has on the other birds. You can hear that's pretty intense. And it's not uncommon for 5 or 6 to trigger each other. I'll show you what that looks like from the quailfinch perspective. But say from the twin spot perspective, who are very sensitive to bird energy, let me show you, how they reacted to the same situation. the fact that the male is pretty chill about it, and it's just Nina who's like, WTF. I'm hoping that A, as the birds settle down more, and B, as the other birds get used to that it will become a non-issue. But let me show you what it looks like. What are the quail finches actually doing? So you can see that. So anyway, I'm confident I'll get stuff worked out, but something to consider if you're sort of think you might be interested in this species, because they are so amazingly cute. They're tiny, tiny. I'll show you a comparison with respect to some of the other birds so you can get a sense of that. But so now back to Angry Bird. It turns out that she is probably in breeding condition, because there is one bird that she allows to be near her, and that is one of the males. And she doesn't let any other bird anywhere near the male, and she doesn't let any other bird near her. So I think I may have a pair that has already bonded. And that explains what was going on. So now that they're in the aviary and they can separate and they have a lot of cover, what I'm noticing is not so much of that aggression. Just they sort of stay away from her and they stay away from the other male, and everybody seems to be getting along pretty well. So I'm excited or happy about that, at least. So here's what happens next. I am hoping you can see that they still have some feather recovery to do, but they're active, exploring, eating well, enjoying, as best I can tell, the environment. I've seen them on all of the different substrates, including in the compost bin. They've also been up on the bench where I sit and watch. They have not been into the warming area, and I'm not sure that they will ever kind of find their way there. So if I have to catch them, that's going to be a bit of a project. And meanwhile, as they are recovering, you can see that the other birds are already, moving into breeding condition and starting to nest. That's all the burlap that you might have seen in the previous video. So we'll see how that all goes. One thing that was kind of funny, when they first moved into the aviary, the way that they crouch and go very still on the ground, and the fact that they're pretty bad at flying, all of the adult birds came down and checked on them to see if they were okay. That was very sweet. So in the next video, I'll probably get back to what's going on with all of these other species. And then by then, hopefully, the quailfinch will be well integrated and well settled in the aviary. And I can show you what they look like when they're in their best, most beautiful plumage, because right now they really don't show how incredibly gorgeous they are.